I think any system can be gamed. I like the primaries, but the Democrats have worked out how to rig the primaries, haven't they?
Well, look, I don't know enough about the ins and outs, but they each have their kind of respective party rules. But I mean, I think it's disappointing that next year there's going to be no Democratic primary effectively. There's going to be no debates. I mean, there are two challenges to Joe Biden, Robert F. Kennedy, who actually I quite admire. I think he's quite good, controversial, but I think he's very intelligent. And then another lady, Marianne Williamson, and they're each polling pretty well. I mean, if you look at their polls, and they're largely ignored by the media here, they're each about 10%, or maybe RFK is 12 and she's 5 and 6. But then again, if you look at the Republican field, that's those figures are much greater than your Chris Christie's and your Tim Scotts and these people who are barely more than 1%. So my point is the challenges to Biden, despite their being ignored or derided by the media, are actually doing quite well.
An important thing will be getting these indictments for Trump, for example. Trump getting those indictments out of a state court and into the Supreme Court. And Meadows, I think, is doing that. He's trying to do that, isn't he? Trying to make it a federal matter. Once it becomes a federal matter, then if Trump wins the election, he can pardon himself, can't he?
Yes, that's the problem. Apparently Georgia is one of only 5 states where the governor does not have the power of pardon. And I mean, you'd imagine Brian Kemp, the Republican governor there, probably would pardon Trump, despite their issues over the years. But yes, you're right. There is an effort to transfer this case to the federal system. And I was just reading today, I think 154 of the acts, of the alleged criminal acts that Trump was supposed to have enacted, they occurred while he was president, and only a very small number, 3 or 4, I think, occurred after he was president. So the case being made is that this is really a federal issue. It should be in the federal court system, and we'll see how that goes. I mean, it's interesting. One of the 19 so-called co-conspirators has used a Georgia law which says you can have a very speedy trial to insist on an October trial, which is very, very soon. So there's some discussion about whether the various co-conspirators will be split apart in terms of their treatment. This is all getting a bit kind of beyond me now in terms of the law, but that could be interesting too.
Yes. Well, you have in the United States a president who is doing the sorts of things which led to the Stuart Kings losing their heads and losing their thrones. He's ignoring the law. For example, the law in relation to immigration. He just goes along and makes it up, and he's not punished for that because the bodies that could deal with him through an impeachment are under his control.
Yes. Well, you're talking about the southern border.
Yes, the southern border. And what he's doing is really, he's ignoring the immigration law of the United States and letting vast numbers of people come into the United States.
Yes, no, that is true, and it is an outrage. The figures are just astonishing. I can't kind of remember them precisely, but millions of people have crossed that border in just a small number of years who shouldn't have.
Yes.
It is just staggering. I mean, just in terms of the law, I think the problem in our Western societies generally is that we just produce so many laws that so many of them are just automatically broken because they can't all be maintained. And I think what that leads to is a disrespect of the law in general. And also the complexity of the law is so enormous that no one really knows when they're breaking the law or not. These cases with Trump are a very good example. I'm pretty sure these so-called conspirators have no idea that they were breaking this racketeering law, say in Georgia, some obscure law that had never been used for this before. But there you go. The law is there, and it can be abused by prosecutors when they want to.